Imagine being attacked by your environment. That's what happened to one young man after breathing in spores from a fungus around in our area. That fungus sometimes turning into a rare and deadly disease.
Yeah, and Sherrod, it's found on other continents like South America, Africa, and here in Asia, but it's also living right here in the U.S. In fact, it's called Histoplasma, and it grows right here along the Ohio River Valley, and it also grows right here along the Mississippi River Valley. KWQC's Morgan Otier shows us how one man found himself fighting for his life after unknowingly breathing in spores from that fungus.
This is Cody Fry, graduating from high school in 2010.
You want your kids to have a good life.
This is Cody 1 year later.
And this didn't happen for him.
Sharon Ponce is Cody's mother. She says her son was showing symptoms of something serious soon after graduation.
The vomiting and the weight loss. Within a few months, he lost almost 106 pounds.
After visiting the family doctor countless times and a battery of tests, Sharon learned her son was suffering from a rare and deadly disease, a disease that comes from a fungus called histoplasmosis.
And they ran the blood test on him and saw the histoplasmosis fungus in his blood.
When soil just like this gets disturbed, along with the dust, we're breathing in histoplasmosis spores.
It's really a Midwestern fungus, and all of us are probably infected with it at some time.
Dr. Douglas Hornick is a lung specialist with the University of Iowa. He says most of us don't know we're breathing in the fungus because nothing happens to us.
You can't see it. You can't find it. You won't know.
Our immune system is in charge of killing the spores, and most of the time it does.
Most of us have been breathing it in on multiple occasions. That's what is common about histoplasmosis.
You're looking at an x-ray now of a healthy person from the Midwest, but there's evidence here of a prior histoplasmosis infection. That's what these tiny nodules are.
They're little tiny spots, rounded spots, a couple millimeters in diameter, randomly distributed mostly in the upper half of the chest.
And on rare occasions, histoplasmosis can turn into a different deadly disease.
Fibrosing mediastinitis is an unusual complication of that type of infection.
Fibrosing mediastinitis is a chronic disease. There's no treatment and there's no cure.
People in this region can die from this disease, fibrosing mediastinitis. It's very lucky that it's extremely rare, but still, those people suffer.
Cody was battling fibrosing mediastinitis.
The disease had a control of him. He really couldn't live a normal life.
Here's a CT scan of Cody's heart and lungs. This big gray mass is not supposed to be here.
The central part of the chest where all the big blood vessels come in and go out from the heart.
You can see the fibrosing mediastinitis squeezing Cody's major blood vessels in his esophagus.
He could barely walk 100 feet before having to stop to catch his breath, and he was only 22 years old.
Every time we did go to the hospital, when he started coughing up blood, I can see in his face that he was worried. I mean, he would start crying.
Cody was drowning in his own lungs.
It was 5 times chemically induced comas from coughing up blood. Cody, love you.
Last October, Cody lost his battle. He died from all the stress the disease was putting on his heart and lungs.
I never heard of the histoplasmosis fungus until it affected my son.
So now his mom is speaking out about Cody's fight for his life.
Since it only happens to a handful of people, you know, it kind of gets swept under the rug.
The disease that killed her son is so rare that there's really no research on it.
So rare that if you look it up on Google, you're not going to find more than a few lines.
But that rare disease came from a fungus so common to our region that it's found growing in the soil we walk on and floating in the air we breathe. I'm Morgan Otier, KWQC-TV 6 News.
Sharon is working to spread the word about rare diseases like her son Cody had. She'll be at the Iowa State Capitol in a couple of weeks for Rare Disease Day, and she is meeting with Davenport's mayor at the end of the month.
Environmental attack. It is a story we first brought you back in February. KWQC's Morgan Otier reporting that histoplasma is a fungus growing in the Midwest, sometimes causing serious infection and even death.
It's common, growing in the Ohio River Valley and right here in the Mississippi River Valley where we live. We all breathe in the Histoplasmosis spores, but the fungus affects some differently than others. In February, we shared the story of Cody Fry, a young Davenport man whose Histoplasmosis infection turned deadly.
Every time we did go to the hospital, when he started coughing up blood, I can see in his face that he was worried. I mean, he would start crying. I never heard of the histoplasmosis fungus until it affected my son.
And Cody died last October, but his story prompted many of you to share your own struggles with this sometimes deadly infection. One local woman managed to avoid that outcome after doctors found an advanced histoplasmosis infection in her lungs.
I was in barns, I was in straw, I was out in the fields. I had much exposure to birds.
Connie Kramer calls rural Illinois home. She always has, even growing up to marry a farmer.
Yes, I was the right-hand man.
But that rural life she loves is also responsible for making her sick.
I developed a cough, and it just hung on. Some days it'd go away, and then it'd come back. And I just kept going like that, back and forth.
She didn't know it at the time, but Kramer was suffering from a histoplasmosis infection.
It's more concentrated, perhaps, in old places where there have been bats and birds living for a long time. That fungus particularly likes to live in that kind of environment.
Dr. Douglas Hornick is a lung specialist at the University of Iowa.
I see lots of patients with histoplasmosis. So it's really a Midwestern fungus, and all of us are probably infected with it at some time.
But some people get sicker than others, people like Kramer.
It's important not to let something like that go if it hangs on.
Eventually, doctors gave Kramer a chest x-ray and learned the cause of her mystery cough.
They saw the size and the shape of a peanut in a shell, is what it looked like.
It was some sort of mass growing larger inside her lungs, riddled with a histoplasmosis infection.
I was very scared because it was totally out of the blue other than the cough.
And here's some of that mass. They look like rocks, but they're not. They're calcifications removed by surgeons along with part of her right lung.
When I got histoplasmosis, they told me it was from bird droppings, and they disintegrate into the soil and then come up into the air. You breathe them, and then you start having problems.
The dangerous surgery was performed soon after her diagnosis. Then, after a 3-month struggle to breathe normally, Kramer created a goal for herself.
We had a family wedding, and my husband and I danced, and I told him I want to be able to dance at this wedding reception, and I did.
A long road, but Kramer feels lucky that doctors caught her histoplasmosis in time.
It's more or less a thing of the past, but it's always in the back of my mind.
Morgan Otier, KWQC-TV 6 News.
Next week, the story of an Illinois woman who says she feels fortunate for her histoplasmosis infection. We'll show you why next Wednesday night at 5 in part 2 of Environmental Attack. We're sharing another powerful story with you tonight as part of our series Environmental Attack. Histoplasmosis is an infection brought on by a fungus growing in the Mississippi River Valley. It affects some people differently than others, even becoming deadly in rare cases.
So it's really a Midwestern fungus, and all of us are probably infected with it at some time.
Tonight, KWQC's Morgan Otier shares the story of a local woman who considers herself lucky after a histoplasmosis infection. That's because at first doctors thought something even more deadly was making her sick.
57-year-old Carol Tolley is a mother and grandmother. She's also a nurse. So when a chronic cough lasting several months got worse, she got worried.
I wasn't getting any better. I had intermittent fevers, constant cough. I coughed all the time.
Tolley drove herself to the emergency room.
Just thinking it was your typical virus, flu, whatever.
She knew her symptoms were serious, but she never imagined what she would hear next.
And it was actually the doctor there that first told me that it could possibly be lung cancer.
A very serious form of lung cancer.
I really felt that was my death sentence right there because non-small cell lung cancer is very difficult to treat. It was extremely devastating.
While Tali was preparing to tell her family the terrifying news, local doctors made plans for further testing.
Then they sent me to Iowa City so I could have a bronchoscopy with a needle biopsy.
Traveling to the University of Iowa hospitals is the only way Tali could know for sure. Did she really have lung cancer?
We all walked in and you see all these cancer patients there, and all I could think was, that's going to be me. I was really scared.
But even before the results were in, Tali's new doctor felt the initial diagnosis was wrong.
The doctor came in and she said, I really don't think you have lung cancer. She said, I really think it's histoplasmosis, it's not lung cancer.
The results confirmed Tali was not suffering from a deadly form of cancer. She had an infection called histoplasmosis.
Really?
So she asked the doctor, how did she get this infection that, even as a nurse, she'd never heard of?
She said it's very common in the Midwest. It's common, by rivers. And I said, well, the river's right down the road for me, I guess.
She's not sick anymore, but Tali says histoplasmosis altered her path for the better.
It just gave me a whole new outlook, and I just changed a lot of things about my life.
She also has some advice for people living in our area.
When your symptoms do not go away, you need to really make sure that whoever your physician is, they really need to check into it further.
Because you could be under attack by your own environment. Morgan OTA, KWQC-TV 6 News.
Next week in Iowa, a woman with histoplasmosis and not affecting just her lungs, but compromising her vision. A common result of this next Wednesday night at 5 in part 3 of Environmental Attack. We are bringing you stories about people in our area affected by histoplasmosis. It comes from a fungus growing naturally in the Mississippi River Valley, and it can be a danger to your health. When you breathe in spores from the fungus, it can cause an infection in your lungs. And as KWQC's Morgan OTA shows us, it can also affect your vision.
If I close my good eye and I put my hand like this, my hand's gone.
57-year-old Margie Schuler has trouble with her eyesight.
If I'm ladling out soup into a bowl, I've poured it right on my hand before. I've poured coffee right on my hand before.
Schuler has ocular histoplasmosis.
It's scary, really, really scary.
Histoplasmosis is a fungal infection that can affect your lungs, but occasionally the spores can travel up to your eyes.
These are little histoplasmosis scars.
Dr. Michael Howcroft is a retina specialist at Eye Surgeons Associates.
Ocular histoplasmosis syndrome is a condition that is fairly prevalent in the Midwest.
He sees a small but steady amount of patients with ocular histoplasmosis, an infection that creates scars on the retina.
If they do activate and you get one of these little blood vessels growing underneath the scar, then they can leak fluid or cause hemorrhaging and can have an effect on the vision. They can also lead to a scar like this that can, when it's in the very center, take away the central vision.
That's what's happening to Schuler.
Your central vision is the part that's really sharp.
And it's impacting her quality of life.
Like if I shut my good eye right now, I won't even see you.
She rarely gets behind the wheel of a car anymore.
When I hit the garage, that kind of did it for me. And I was backing out and my mirror hit the side of the garage.
Schuler will drive a few blocks to the grocery store, but that's pretty much all she's comfortable with.
Like 9 o'clock in the morning when everybody's at work and, there's little traffic. So, yeah, it's scary. I've hit signs in parking lots. I've never hit a car.
Her vision is distorted and her depth perception is off. To her, passing cars and trucks look like they're about to crash into her.
The semi's coming past, and then when it gets where it's up by us, it looks like the end of it's going over the hood of the car.
Schuler says she has one good eye right now, her left, allowing her to read and watch TV.
This one's the bad eye.
She's worried that soon they will both be bad eyes. A recent scan shows new deterioration in her left eye.
I just cried all day, and I couldn't eat for a couple of days.
If she loses central vision in that good eye, Schuler will only be able to see what's in her periphery.
I wouldn't really be able to see what anybody looked like, and I definitely wouldn't be able to read.
Still, Schuler is working hard to stay positive, even if she does lose central vision in both eyes.
I'll still be able to look out the window and see blue sky, but I'll still be able to see color and light.
And that's what Schuler is focusing on as she battles this environmental attack. Morgan Otier, KWQC-TV 6 News.
Many of us are breathing in histoplasma spores, but not all of us have symptoms or an infection. For most people, a healthy immune system will kill that fungus quickly. But for anyone who notices a change in their breathing or eyesight, it's important to see a doctor.